don't be scared of life after graduation. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're going to continue to have challenges that come up and new things that you have to figure out, and you just take them one at a time, and you're going to do great.
Hello, I'm Darrat, and I'm very proud to be your FY26 President of the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. And if you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe so you can never miss one of these wonderful episodes. I have so much fun and enjoy meeting with our guests and talking about the topics of interest at the moment, and I hope you also enjoy it as well. So if you enjoy it, please subscribe. It's graduation season, and while it's been many years for me, today we're going to be talking about something every engineering student eventually faces, the transition out of undergrad. Engineering school gives you an incredible technical foundation, but there are also real-world skills and experiences you only start to develop after you graduate. Now, to help us today, we have two wonderful engineers who have recently made that transition. Abigail, who is our collegiate director at the Society, and I have the honor of serving with Abigail this FY26, is a Ph.D. candidate in biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins University. Also, another SWE leader who's joining us today is Abby, who is a hydraulic engineer with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and she serves as the Leadership Development Program Beginner Track Coordinator with SWE. And a fun fact is that Abby and Abigail were both recipients of the SWE Outstanding Collegiate Member Award in 2022. So congratulations to both Abby and Abigail. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much for your commitment and your volunteering with the Society. And as many listeners of this podcast know, that the awards program is very much near and dear to my heart. So it's always wonderful to meet award recipients of the Society. And just a quick note, the opinions shared in this episode are those of our guests and don't reflect the views of their employers. Abby and Abigail, welcome to Diverse.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here. And just a fun fact, this is Abigail. I want to share that I actually met Abby during our senior year of undergraduate. We were both in the SWE Leadership Development Program together, and now she is the leader of our beginner track. So it's really almost a full circle moment for us both to be here and getting to share what we've been doing since graduating.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. You know, one of the best things about SWE is our community and our community building, right? And you never know who you're going to meet and how you're going to reconnect with them. And the next time you see them, you know, there's SWE members. I always talk about how there's SWE members that I see once a year at Society Conference. And once I moved to Houston, I just happened to sit next to one of those SWE members. And we'd seen each other for years and years and years and years. And if you'd asked me their name, I wouldn't remember it. But now I know them because I know them very well since we live in the same town. We've gotten to know each other and we've gotten to be SWE people together. And so you never know who you're going to meet. And then when you meet them the next time and just that connection. So for the two of you, let's think about that connection. You were part of the Leadership Development Program and now you're serving together as leaders. What's one of the things that connected you to all these years and that community? And what's been one thing that if you told anyone that you like, oh, we met many years ago, that they would be surprised about, besides the fact that you know each other now?
I think that it is always so exciting because, as I said, I think that things in SWE tend to come full circle. So a lot of the people that I've worked with, for instance, you know, the third person in our leadership development program final project, I just saw her at We Local and she was on the organizing committee for We Local Columbus. And so I think that SWE is one of those incredible communities where people kind of circulate in and out through phases in their life. You keep coming back and seeing, just like you were saying, Anas, you keep seeing the same people at conferences, and you get the chance to watch people kind of grow through phases of their life and give their strengths to SWE at each of their individual points. So, for example, you know, when I was an undergraduate, I got the chance to be very involved in my undergraduate section because it was very strong and had a lot to do. And now that I'm in graduate school, I've transitioned over to doing more for the society at large and serving on the board of directors. So I think that's a fun surprise always to see, is kind of where people are in their lives affects how they're able to give to SWE and what that means for how they show up at the society. But no matter what, you keep seeing the same people and you have that wonderful, supportive, vibrant community throughout whatever phase of life that you're in.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And I think I also, as like an early career professional, it's really cool to kind of see all these people go off on their own journeys. And like you both mentioned, kind of drifting in and out and like seeing them grow through SWE leadership and in their careers. And just to know that you have friends kind of all over the world that are all experiencing kind of the same journey that you are, but also in very different ways. And so you know that you always have people in your corner, but you also get to just look out and like see all these amazing women doing amazing things. And I just think that's really cool and inspiring.
That's why the passion and really like building our community and continuing to grow our community and the mission is so inspiring, is seeing it in action, right? Is seeing it in action and seeing it develop and then seeing the relationships that we build across the society. So thank you both for sharing your insights on that. So a little bit about today's podcast, right, is that we're talking about transition. So let's take us back to your last year of undergrad. And the next thing to think about is, what did you expect to do and what surprised you the most? I'll give you a little bit of story. I thought, and I told the story about like the Embrace Your Story, this means so much to me, is I was going to graduate. I went and interned and I was planning on going to grad school. And needless to say, I did all those things, but not necessarily on the trajectory that I thought would happen. So if you two would not mind sharing, and Abigail, I'll start with you, is what surprised you the most about your transition?
Yeah, so a little bit more about me is I did my undergraduates. I did 2 degrees in chemical engineering and biomedical engineering. And then I transitioned directly into a PhD program in biomedical engineering. So I was sort of, moving fields a little bit and switching focus, but I thought to myself, oh, it's more school. How different could it possibly be grad school from undergrad? I was expecting, go to classes, maybe I'd do a little bit more research. I was very involved in research as an undergrad, but what was a little bit of a shock to me was sort of how within some of the same structures of things, how much a lot of the emphasis changed on what I was doing. So especially coming out of undergrad, I felt like I was killing it. I knew exactly what was expected of me. I knew how to study. I knew how to get A's on things. I felt like I had it figured out. And so getting to grad school and having to kind of learn to play the game a little bit differently was a little bit of an adjustment for sure. I think that it took me a while to switch my mindset away from thinking about, how do I get that particular achievement or sort of like grade, and switch to more of a mindset of, okay, what do I need to learn here and how do I actually apply it? So it was very much a switch from some of that instantaneous feedback and really being able to kind of tick the boxes. And it moved a lot towards being able to take in a lot of new information, be able to figure out exactly what that meant for me, and be able to discard the information that I didn't need. Because, unlike classes and research, sometimes you study a lot of things and then you realize, oh, I don't actually need to run that experiment, or, it's not going to tell me anything interesting about my research question. And so that was a big adjustment for me as well, trying to learn when information wasn't necessary and that I didn't need to learn everything that I was told about, as opposed to classes where it was like, oh, if it's, told to me during undergrad, it's shown up on the test, so I'd better learn it. And so with all of those different approaches, it took me a while to kind of adjust and be able to think about this in a new way. But I really enjoy now being able to kind of sort through information and see what's important to me. And then I can take that into my research and my work that I do every day. And I actually get to apply all the engineering principles that I used in undergrad. So for instance, not only do I know how a cell builds its cytoskeleton, but I'm actually to the point where I can tinker with that system and change the way that cells move and the way that they interact with each other. And then down the line, that tells me things about how they're actually changing in certain diseases and the things that I study. So that has led to a lot of excitement, and I really enjoy what I get to do now, even though it took a little bit of time to get used to it.
I can hear the excitement in your voice, which is always wonderful.
Yes, so I did my undergrad at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and I studied civil engineering, and I graduated in December of 2023. And I interned at my current employer for 2 summers before I moved out here to start full-time. So I kind of knew a little bit about what to expect, but still in my last semester of undergrad, I remember being so scared of starting my job and going out into the real world. And I think that a lot of that maybe just had to do with this idea that it was the first time in my life that I didn't really have a clear endpoint for it. It was kind of like, okay, now you have this job and you can go and settle in. And like in school, you always have this timeline of like, it's going to take 4 years or however long. But this was the first time that I really, once I got settled in here, I had no kind of inclination of what the next step was. And I think I found that kind of really terrifying at first. And it really surprised me how much you can kind of enjoy the freedom of that, of not having to think about what the next step is, not having to worry about getting a job or deadlines and projects and things that you have going on during undergrad. It was more about like, go about your day, and then you get to come home and have some free time and not really have to worry about what that next chapter of your life is going to be at this point. And that was kind of an interesting mindset shift to go from being kind of scared of that to realizing that there's a lot of freedom in that.
So Abby, I have a question. Is like achiever one of your strengths, kind of thing where like you have a goal that you're setting and you want to accomplish it?
For sure, yes.
As a fellow achiever, I completely understand that. So when you started your job, you're like, what are my goals now, right? Because your goal is no longer, I'm going to graduate with such a degree and get a job, or I'm graduating high school. You graduate high school, then you graduate college, and then you're going to get an internship so you can get a job, and you get a job. Like, so you've got all these goals that you're working towards, and then all of a sudden you have a job, and your goals kind of take on new avenues, right? And also, like, it's not like you go to class and then you come home and you have to study. Yes, sometimes you have to work outside of business hours, but your job is really like you work during your time. So how did you maneuver that, like with your goal setting? Did you come up with like what your goals were going to be? I mean, I'm assuming you had annual goals, but when you first started, you may not have had goals at that point. And how did you maneuver that? How did you come up with a way for you to use that strength of yours to start? It's been in the first couple of years.
Yeah, so I definitely still set goals, but it's much more of kind of a mindset shift in the shape that those goals take. Certainly professional goals helped a lot with that. Like I was thinking about starting to study for my PE, and so that's a very clear professional goal to work towards. And then I also kind of started to set some personal goals. So thinking about saving up for like a trip that I wanted to take, or leaning a little bit more into some of my passions and hobbies like writing and spending a little bit more time with that. So yeah, I think the goals just kind of start to take a different shape, and you also get a little bit more time to focus on some of those personal goals that you maybe don't have a lot of time for in school because you have to spend more time studying and meeting deadlines and things like that.
Abigail, I want to take something that you said earlier back, and I wanted to go back to it. One of the things you said, is that when you're in class, that's going to be lined up on the test, it's information. One of the things, as you said, is that, the information you collect and then you use. But have you also found that once you're out of school, sometimes information is just given to you as a comment, and it's just a quick comment, and then you go on, and then maybe a little bit later, you remember, oh, that person said that. That actually might be important versus being in class or a professor like stressing something so that this is important to understand for a test. Have you had that experience or anything that lends itself to where like the kinds of information gathering that could be informal information potentially?
Definitely. That's been my experience for sure. I'm glad you called that out. I think that to some extent, yeah, especially since a lot of learning after undergraduate for me, it transitioned to learning in those informal spaces. So you lose a little bit of like the structure, right, of going to a lecture, being told what the information is you need to learn and what's important from it. And I think that part of having the ability to sort through that knowledge and know what's important is that sometimes something that seems a little offhand turns out to be really important. For example, I remember when I was starting in my Ph.D. program, I was learning to do mammalian cell culture for the first time. So I'd never, grown human cells in a lab. I didn't know what that looked like. I did exclusively bacterial work in my undergrad. Human cells were a lot more fussy, didn't know what was going on. And so I learned the protocol, thought I was doing great. And I got to my second rotation lab and I had a cell type that sticks to the bottom of the flask. So but when you have to lift it and then move it to another flask or to a dish in order to image it, you have to add a reagent that will cause the cells to detach from the bottom. And I added the reagent, and I was waiting and I was waiting and I was waiting, and the cells were not detaching. I could not figure out what was going on. And I was like going through my notes, trying to figure out what I'd missed. And it turns out that there was an offhand comment that one of my trainers had made that was, oh, and then do a quick wash with, this solution, and then you add this. And apparently that really quick wash with that solution before you add the reagent was actually quite important. So it was not emphasized in the, training that I got in order to do that protocol, but it did turn out to be quite important. And I've had a lot of things come up like that, even outside of lab work, that I've been to, a lot of conferences or done a lot of presentations now with my research. And sometimes you get someone that wanders up to your poster. They look at it for about 20 seconds. They ask you one question and then they leave. And then I spend the next 2 hours thinking about that question because they might have seen something in my research that I had never seen before. So for example, I had someone look at the way that I was making my hydrogels that I cultured my cells on, and they mentioned something about the coating I was using, and then they, left to go enjoy the rest of their conference. And I spent the next probably week looking up papers about that particular coating they'd suggested, and it changed the way that I did my protocol. So I think that part of, learning to sort through your own information and make your own decisions, as an engineer, as a scientist, and as someone who has that technical expertise, is learning to sort of pursue things that people tell you, and then being able to decide whether or not it is something that you then need to incorporate into your own practice and in your own base of knowledge. And that is happening, as I said, now informally outside of classrooms. So it's definitely true that you kind of need to learn how to take things as they come and be able to circle back around and figure out when you need to be constantly, learning, of course, but also when you need to sort of take things a little more seriously than perhaps the context signals you to.
Yes, that is interesting. And it's just amazing where you'll pick up a wealth of information, right? Conferences are amazing, like no longer undergrad, but professional who's like talking and, just conversing with other engineers. It's amazing what you can pick up from a conference or some random conversation that you never thought about. So on that note of, I wasn't surprised me, or this is not what I was expecting. If you look back on your first year after you graduated undergrad, can you give an example of something where you thought engineering school did not prepare me for this? We'll start with you, Abby.
Yeah, in my first year, pretty quickly after starting, I kind of started to deal with burnout really early. And I remember kind of thinking like, wow, I just started. Why am I already burnt out? But I think the initial transition of moving somewhere new, starting a new job right away, and being thrown into like a lot of different things that you have to learn right away on the job, combined with a little bit of travel for like trainings and things like that. And between a lot of that, I felt like I had a really hard time kind of settling in to where I was and really kind of making it feel like a home. And so I had to kind of take a step back and focus a little bit more on sort of building my community and my support system here and thinking about the things that I could do to sort of maintain some sense of normalcy and allow me to continue to feel like this new space was where I am now and it's my home. And so a lot of that became finding new ways to, make friends and engage with the community, and spending a lot more time kind of reaching out to my friends in various other places and reconnecting with some of my hobbies. So like reading books, seeing more movies and things like that, to just, again, kind of maintain that sense of normalcy of like, I've moved to this new place for a new job. Yes, but I'm still Abby at the end of the day and still do all the things I love.
One of the things I wanted to follow up on is one of the recent episodes we did was about making friends after college. And you literally just talked about making friends and how hard it was, to get that support system, make friends when you started undergraduate. Can you give a little bit more details on how you built that community and made friends once you left undergrad and in this new chapter of your professional life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think making friends after college was definitely one of the things that I was the most worried about. I tend to be a more introverted person. So the idea of kind of like going out there and putting yourself out there is absolutely terrifying to me. And so one of the things that I think I did that worked really well for me was trying to find events in my community or like workshops, activities, things I wanted to go to that I knew that I would be completely fine doing by myself. I would go by myself, and if I got to talking with people there and ended up kind of making a connection, then that was just a great added bonus. And if I didn't, then is okay because I still, went to like a paint night and made a cool painting or like went to a new class or tried something new. Because making friends as an adult can be so exhausting, like trying to talk to people and then it may be not panning out. And so that kind of helped combat that kind of exhaustion of like, if you go and do this thing and you don't make any friends, that's okay because you still had a good time and did something cool for yourself. But a lot of times it did end up working out, and I would meet a lot of people that also went to these things solo and were also kind of hoping to make friends. And I think that's what I find too, is that like you are most likely not the only young adult in your community who is looking for more friends, and definitely don't underestimate the power of just like sparking up a conversation with somebody. They might also be wanting somebody to talk to, and that has definitely worked out in my favor quite a few times. And I would also say that I think SWE has had a really big hand in helping me build this community as well. I think kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier about the people that you meet through SWE and how you continue to see them in various spaces, that has certainly happened a few times where through like volunteering with the leadership development program, the people that I've worked with through that, I've met at conferences now and I continue to see them again and again. And I just know that like there's always somebody that I can reach out to and talk to from that program. And I would also shout out the Early Career Professionals Affinity Group has a really great network, and they have a lot of online events, and those are really great for having a chance to talk to people online and meet new people that way. I also participate in this program that the Early Career Professionals Affinity Group has called the Peer Partnership Program, which was for over like 4 months. They pair you with somebody and you get to kind of do like a speed dating thing at the beginning to meet all of the different people who are in the program, and they match you with somebody based on that. And so you get to meet with this person a couple of times, and that was a cool way to like really get to know someone and kind of make a friend that way. Ignite, the Early Career Leadership Program, had kind of the same effect. Like, especially, I did that pretty quickly after I started my new job. And that was really great for helping with some of the initial transition and the initial anxieties of starting a new job, where I would get to just hop into a breakout room with some people who maybe I would never see again, but it was for the moment. You get to spend 30 minutes talking to these people about some of the issues that you're facing, and you feel a little less alone. And there are a few people that I met through that I, again, continue to see at conferences and through other SWE events. And SWE has definitely had a big hand in helping me build up my community that way as well.
Yes, I would agree. SWE's a great way. And when I finished grad school and moved and went to go meet people, I had like my community that I grew up in, but then I moved to a different town. So I also had folks that I knew that were the same background heritage as I was. We have like a worldwide community. So it's always great because I can always find someone I know from where my family's from, but then also just meeting sweet people. But one thing I did was Meetup, which is how I discovered book clubs. Most people don't know this, and I tell everyone this. If you know me from SWE, you would never know I was an introvert, because SWE's so much one of my safe places that like I'll just go around and talk to anyone. But a book club was really one of the things that I found when I graduated and started working as an early career, was a great way to make friends. And in Houston, one of my biggest support groups are the folks that I met in my book club when I first moved here. Even as a mid-career, as someone who moved like across the country to a different part of the country and only knew a few people, I would agree, like finding the things you're passionate about is such a great opportunity, and to go meet people. So thank you for sharing all the different examples, Abby, because I think a lot of people would be very interested in knowing how to do that. Now, Abigail, you have a very different postgraduate path. Instead of going into industry or government or other avenues, you decided to go into academia. So the first question I have for you is more What was your interest in going to academia? What was your passion about going to academia?
Yeah, so part of what really shaped my interest in that was through the people that I got a chance to meet through SWE. So I think that, during my undergraduate, I did not really have much awareness of academia as a career path for an engineer. I think that a lot of what I was exposed to was thinking about, going to industry, and like especially medical device industry, kind of working in some of the biomedical engineering space and things like that. And so that's sort of what I thought I was going to do. And I, took internships in industry, both of which I found at SWE conferences. So shout out for that. But it was really actually when I was doing those internships in industry that I started to think a little bit more about what I enjoyed about the work and what I didn't like so much. Even though I was, doing research and development work for large biotech companies, I realized I wanted a little bit more autonomy to pursue some of my own interests in the project and be able to do a little bit more exploratory work. And so I started talking to some people at the company that I was working for, especially a lot of the, senior scientists and project leaders and things like that. And a lot of them had PhDs, and they were the ones who were sort of getting to direct a little bit more of the work and who were having a little bit more latitude. And so I thought, oh, okay, let me go see what it would take to do a PhD, because I had no idea. And so part of that is I found out that SWE had a Women in Academia. At the time, it was a committee. Now it's our working group. And I was looking to get more involved at the society level of SWE. So I thought, oh, perfect. I'll apply to volunteer. Not sure what I can contribute, but I'll show up. I'll see what it's about. And I applied, and I became a member of the group. And I met all of these wonderful people that were across the world doing lots of different things in engineering academia. And that really helped me understand, what that could look like if that was something I wanted to do. And the other thing that I think really influenced my trajectory was the mentors that I had in SWE. So I was reading one of our lovely SWE newsletters a few years ago, and I saw that Grad SWE had launched a mentoring cohort where it would pair current graduate students with current undergraduates who were interested in applying to grad school. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'm not sure if this is something I want to do, but I applied and I got matched with someone who was doing a chemical engineering PhD at the time. And I started talking with her about what that looked like. And the more and more I talked with her, the more I realized that, a PhD would fit what I really, really wanted, which was the ability to pursue research that I was interested in, the ability to kind of design my own days and have a flexible schedule, the ability to train and mentor others and to teach and do a lot of the things that I really enjoyed already. And so I was really fortunate that I had the connections through SWE that allowed me to explore that as a career option and really understand what I would be getting myself into. And, even further on, when I did decide to apply, I did not know anyone who had decided to take this path. No one in my immediate family, no one in my SWE section, anything like that. I think it was a little bit rarer to decide to go straight into a PhD, especially. And so I really leaned on that network that I had through SWE to continue to go through that process. That mentor that I'd been connected with through grad SWE, she was reading my, applications for grad school. She was telling me, how I should reach out to professors and see if I was interested in their research. I had one late night, a week before my big application deadline was, and I was panicking and I didn't know what I should put in my personal statement. And so I logged onto the SWE mentoring network and I set up a meeting with someone who was a current graduate student. And I had a 30-minute meeting with her that calmed me down, first of all, and made me feel like I could actually do this and I should submit my application. And it, wasn't something that I should be as nervous about as I probably was. And she also really helped me work out kind of what my experience was and just having that external perspective, even it was a 30-minute conversation with her. And I don't think I've ever spoken in person with her again, but she really, really helped me to bring that outside perspective and look at my experience, bring that almost objectivity to say, no, you are qualified for this. This is what you write about and this is what you submit and it's going to be fine. And so with all the encouragement and sort of role modeling that I had from all of those mentors, I was able to go through the whole application process, get accepted to, my top choice university, which was Johns Hopkins, and had all the, connections to the medical school that I really wanted in order to work on translational work that I am excited is going to have, impacts in real patients' lives and the work that I do. And so that is sort of how I went from not having any awareness at all of, research and academia as a potential career path for an engineer to now being fully invested and being really excited that I have been in school for most of my life and still have a lot to go.
So, Abigail, the most important question is, do you have any more tests you have to do?
No. Well, unless you count the thesis defense, but that is a test you should pass. If you have a good advisor, they would not let you do that unless you are pretty much a foregone conclusion. But I'm happy to report that I passed my qualifying exam almost exactly a year ago.
Congratulations.
So that is what made me officially a PhD candidate. And at that same time, I also finished up all of the classes that I needed to take, took my final exams, the last of my life, I hope. So yeah, I'm very excited that I do not have any more tests in my future.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can't wait to call you Dr. Abigail. Abby, how about you? Any more tests you have to take?
I do have to take the PE, but then hopefully that'll be the last of it.
That'll be the last of it. But yes, which is technically an open book test somewhat.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, the difference between taking a test as a professional versus as an undergrad, right, is that the PE is technically an open book test. So good luck to you on the PE as well. And then look forward to Abby for seeing you as a professional engineer as a PE.
Thank you.
So with that, I want to thank you both. And before we wrap up today, I would like to challenge you all with what's a piece of advice you would give to graduating engineers today about life after graduation?
Yeah, so I would really just emphasize that you're going to have so much more freedom and to really just enjoy that. And, outside of like the 9 to 5 or whatever hours you work, you truly get to have some time for yourself to lean into things that you're passionate about and maybe discover some new things that you enjoy. Again, kind of thinking about like those goals, you get to start thinking about, if you want to try and go on trips or like what other kinds of things that you want to accomplish that are outside of the academic or professional realm. And so I would say just really enjoy having that freedom. Don't be scared of life after graduation. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're going to continue to have challenges that come up and new things that you have to figure out, and you just take them one at a time and you're going to do great.
Thank you for sharing. Abigail?
Yeah, I think that some of the best advice I ever received came from a postdoc that I was working with during my senior year. And she got to watch me try and do a senior design project in her lab while simultaneously being gone about half of every week to do PhD program visits. And I remember during one really long day where we were sitting and waiting for an assay to run, I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I'd been doing all these visits and everyone I'd talked to was like, I want to study exactly this, disorder of the eye. And I'm going to do this exact intervention. And this is my timeline to finish my PhD. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I just figured out that I actually wanted to be here. I couldn't tell you exactly what I want to do once I get here. And this postdoc that I was working with, she kind of listened to my, concerns for a bit. And then she looked me in the eye and she was like, pick a direction and build passion there. That is how you build something that you are excited about, is that you have to put the effort in. That effort comes first. And so that was really important for me to hear because it helped me realize that, like Abby said, you don't have to have it all figured out. And so whether that's a job that you take after undergrad, whatever you choose to do, put effort into where you are, and that's where you're going to reap the reward and start to build it. Even if you don't think it's going to be your forever position, or, it might not be, if you go to grad school, that you're going to study that particular condition for the rest of your life. That was something that was really important for me to hear, and it's something that has really driven a lot of my excitement. Because I was open to things when I got to graduate school, I took a project that I started when I was rotating in a lab that was new and that didn't have a lot of direction. And that is what I've actually built into what I'm doing my thesis on. So I think that having that flexibility and that ability to sort of pick what you invest in and then let that give back and invest in you, that's something that's really great about life after undergrad, is that you get to really choose what you dedicate your time towards. And that is then going to shape in turn who you are and what's important to you. So take advantage of that lack of, strong deadlines or that lack of structure sometimes, and use that to evaluate kind of what you think you would enjoy, and then put the effort in to make sure that it is something that you really devote time to. And hey, listen, if it doesn't work out, or if you find out it's not something that you love, that's fine. But being sort of open, I think, to putting in that effort is what has gotten me where I am today. And it's what has gotten me to a project that I really love and that I really enjoy working on. And I'm happy to dedicate, 5 years of my life to understanding a very particular mechanism of what goes wrong in a very specific kind of cell in a specific kind of tumor inside the uterus. And that is my life right now. And I could not be happier about it. So I would just encourage people to embrace the ability to put in that work and to specialize and to really dedicate themselves to something.
I would agree. Let me tell you, if you had told me when I graduated that I would do the job I do now. So I'm the director of chemical sector services at Trinity, and I work with chemical plants, refineries, oil and gas facilities across the world, with most of them being in the US, Canada, and across other places. This is not what I thought my job would be, but I ended up following a passion after I decided not to finish my Ph.D. and went down a path. And here I am today in a role that I created for myself in the overall scheme of things. And my company helped me create for myself and was willing to do that. And it's because I followed my passion, and that's how I ended up where I am today. You never know where it could take you. It doesn't have to be a complete outline. So really love the insights, Abigail and Abby, of following that passion and exploring the freedom that you get post-school and learning, there's a wide world out there, so go explore and follow your passion. And on that note, I will also say, as both of you are SWE volunteers and SWE leaders specifically, is, one of the questions I always get from SWE members is, oh, I don't know what to volunteer for. I have a question about what to volunteer for. And the thing I always ask everyone, tell me what you're passionate about. Tell me what brings you joy, right? Not only can you bridge that into volunteer time you spend, but in also your work time, right? Also, on that note, Abby, when we first started this, I asked Abby if being an achiever is one of our strengths. Find your strength and follow your strength, because you spend so much of your time at work. Figure out something that you love. And Abigail and Abby, both of you, it's very clear in your sharing and your insights how passionate you are about what you do now and where you stand now, and how being an undergrad was very different than where your lives are taking you now. So again, thank you both so much. Hopefully our listeners get multiple insights from our conversation today. And congratulations, Abigail, once again on passing your qualifying exams, and look forward to seeing you graduate with that PhD soon. And Abby, looking forward to seeing you get that PE. So thank you both so much. And thank you so much for your time. And most of all, thank you so much for volunteering your time and your commitments to society, and as being wonderful SWE leaders. So with that, just as a reminder for everyone, while engineering school gives you a strong foundation, so much of what comes next is about building your own foundation and embracing who you are and embracing your own specific goals, successes, and those pivots along the way that get you to where you want to be and get you to where you are today. So congratulations to all the SWE members who are graduating. And as you heard today, your journey with SWE doesn't end here, whether it's networking, mentorship, or continuing to grow your leadership skills. And Abigail and Abby both shared the mentoring network, the affinity groups, and all the activities that go between all the other SWE activities, is that there are so many ways that SWE can help you advance as an early career engineer. You can learn more about SWE membership, including our Collegiate to Career membership, at SWE.org/membership. Again, I'm Ines Darrat, and it's been my honor to serve as your FY26 president this year. And from all of us at SWE, thank you for listening.